Okay guys, so Ousen is back and he is as cold-hearted and soulless as ever. And you'll see what I'm on about very soon, but first, as always, I gotta do a quick talk about what happened in this week's chapter, because there is a lot of crucial information given, and there is a lot of things that this information can lead to. But before we get into it guys, as always, don't forget to smash that like button down below, and since you're down there, you may as well hit that subscribe button with that notification bell so you can stay up to date with the channel and all things Kingdom. So the first half of the chapter starts off with Sei, Shobun-kun, and I gotta be careful when I pronounce this, Fu Q, talking about the success of the Han invasion and their surprise and relief in their cooperation with the Qin officials. And there is one piece of information here that is very important to the future of the story, but I do not want to get into it because it includes massive spoilers for the future of the story, and I hate that. I know these and I don't want to spread the hate. So if you know, then you know. If you don't, then count yourself lucky, and for the people who do know, please don't spoil it for the other people. However, other than this, the only two pieces worth talking about is that Sei wishes to visit Shin Tae, he wishes to see Shin, which is only natural of course, but more interesting, he wishes to speak to the former king of Han and discuss the burdens that only kings can understand. Now this is just my opinion, but I feel like that is a conversation we should see. Sure, it probably will not be relevant at all to the story and will have zero effects long term, but it's bound to be very interesting. Anyway, back to the chapter, we then get plenty of exciting information about the Xiao invasion that is to take place next year. We now know that it's going to include the likes of Shin, Muten, Wuhan and their respective units, not to mention the former Tao army commanders with what should be a large force from Han, so I'm presuming we'll also get to see Yoko in action once again. And then we hear how Yotanwa has gathered even more forces to her army, and the biggest twist of the story is hearing that Ousen has rebuilt his army to full fighting strength and even has 4 new generals to replace the ones he has lost, and supposedly they are just as capable as Ousen's fallen generals. Now here's some important parts. So his new generals' names are now in order of their rank. Number 1, Naraku, who by the way looks a lot like a young Aku, Ankai, Shinshu, but that's no surprise because we all pretty much guessed that he would be among the new commanders after seeing he was already a 5,000 commander. Now Sou is back in his rank of 4th general like when we first met him all the way back in the Western Zhao invasion arc. And number 5 is Riju. Now I'm going to ignore the fact that Ousen doesn't care that Tao is no longer one of the 6 great generals, because that will send me on a rant, and I mean just acting as if Tao being there or not being there would make a difference. The goddamn audacity of him, can you imagine it? Oh god, I started. Anyway, back to the point, Ousen gives the broad strokes of the plan for the invasion coming next year, claiming it will go beyond the scale of the battles of Hango and Jian, and we will come back to this point soon. But now we know from Ousen that Wuhan and the Gyokyu are to join Yotanwa and head east, while the likes of Shin, Muten, the Tao commanders, and the Han army are to head north and join Ousen to face Riboku. And it is here that we are reminded just how cold-hearted and soulless Ousen is. Now we know that Ousen sees everyone as pieces on a chessboard for him to use and throw away as he sees fit, but he fully intends on using the troops from Han as completely expendable pawns and to let them die. Now I can see Ousen doing this by just using them to test some enemy formations and see if he can find their weak spot for his actual forces to strike. What's troubling is that aside from Sou, the other commanders seem to have zero problems with this. If anything, Ankai seems happy about this, which really calls into question where they morally stand. But nonetheless, Ousen orders his 2 strategist commanders, Shincho and Riju, to come up with 10 variations to his plan, and then commands his warrior commanders to switch from doing drills to support warfare. Now that to me is the biggest implication that Ousen intends to use the Han army as basically pincushions and being target practice for Xiao while he preserves his forces. I mean, every time we think this man cannot sink any lower, he of course proves us wrong. Now I can't think of a worse way to show the other nations that their people won't be used to save actual kin forces. I mean, think about it now. If Ousen truly intends to do things this way, there is a decent chance the Han forces will either turn on him or abandon him. And you know, it's moments like these that I ask myself why a man that wishes to be king would not learn how to earn the loyalty of the people, because as far as we can see, anyone that disagrees with him, he just bribes, blackmails, or intimidates them into being obedient. If he were to create a state, it would fall faster than the state of I. Like, let's be honest. But anyway, now we get to go into the fun part, and that's where we can discuss all the possibilities of where this chapter might lead. Now, I've said a fair piece about the new Ousen commanders, but I have to admit, I won't believe they are as capable as the likes of Aku until I see it with my own two eyes. Now, sad as it is to say, I can see Den Remy being replaced because he was mostly a strategical commander. Useful, yes. Skilled, yes. But with Ousen's sharp eyes for talent, that is not a rare skill in the Ousen army. For us to believe the likes of Naraku can be compared to Aku, his first engagement will have to be on par with Aku, where he, without hesitation, charged into Xiao forces, toppling them like dominoes one after another. And I know some of you will say his first engagement was actually outside Xiao with Ousen, and as badass as that scene was, and I can't wait to see it animated, I am talking about his first proper engagement. And I also thought finally it's time for Kin to pull generals out of thin air. Riboku has gotten more than his fair share of doing this. And now to the part where I said we'd come back to, and that being that this upcoming battle will be a battle that will be beyond the scale of Jian and Hango. So let's take a look at those numbers. The Battle of Jian was 450,000 troops in total, would have been 600,000 if the Qin Northeastern Army arrived in full, and even more than that if the Ousen army had joined also. Then you come to the Battle of Hango, and that was 550,000 in total. And then we can go back again and then we can see the Western Zhao invasion. And while the numbers on this campaign were never certain, it was at least 500,000, probably more, because when you consider all the forces that we didn't get a clear number on, it adds up. For example, the forces that surrounded Xiao, or should I say surrounded Kanki as he surrounded Xiao, and then there's all the interception armies along Qin's pass to Retsubi. Not to mention we never got a clear number on how many forces were actually in Ryukyu. But I think it's only right that we do the math on what the rough numbers are going to be for the Qin army. Now, we don't know what Xiao will be producing, but it's fair to say it will be somewhere close to Qin, but odds are it will be more than Qin, because I don't think Qin and Xiao have ever had a battle where Qin had more soldiers than Xiao. So we have the 100,000 from the combined Muten and Wuhan armies, the freshly rebuilt Ousen army, which I'm going to say will be minimum 60,000 soldiers, being 10,000 for each commander, and Ousen, I feel like that is somewhere around their former strength. Then there's the mountain armies, which we have absolutely zero idea on, but I'm going to guess around 60,000, maybe 70. And then if you throw in SHin, who will still be commanding at least 60,000, mixed in with the Tou army commanders, probably 20,000 each, but maybe that's just me being too optimistic. Plus then you throw in a Han army that can be anywhere from 50,000 to 100,000 strong. But for fun, let's just say it's going to be 100,000. And yes, I know that Han could produce more, but you gotta remember, they have borders to protect. But back to the math, that makes it a rough grand total of 380,000 for Qin. Now that is the highest number we've seen Qin have in a very long time. But seeing numbers this high is the only way a battle can exceed the likes of Jian and Hango. Now for Xiao to withstand an attack like this, they are going to have to hold nothing back, so they better pull out all the stops. Now, other than Riboku pulling some other super awesome generals out of his ass, we better get to see a resurgence of the likes of Earl Rai, Kusan Ryu, who's been around since the Battle of Beiyu, and then there's the infamous Rihaku of defense, and of course we got to see the likes of Kisui and Bate, and while my heart wants this, my brain tells me they're probably dead. And now I gotta discuss the possible battles that are coming. Now we know that there are 2, but maybe with such a large force, it could be 3. Try to follow my logic here. because my brain works very fast, so it's hard to keep track of all my thoughts. So we know that Wuhan and the Gyoku are to join Yotanwa and head east to supposedly attack Kantan. Now, presuming that Riboku's Great Wall had no gates, that is the only thing that makes sense to me why they head east. Unless Yotanwa plans on fighting the likes of Shibashu, though we don't know where Sika is exactly. We know it's by the Yon border in eastern or northeastern Xiao. We don't know if it's near the eastern end of the wall. However, if under the assumption that Yotanwa will face off against Shibashu, the mountain tribes are the best suited to face such a powerful opponent. And if SHin were to defeat Riboku and Wuhan was to take down Shibashu, they could both be promoted to being among the Kin 6 Greats. Or at the very least, Wuhan will be granted the rank of Great General, because we already know that if SHin beats Riboku, he is guaranteed a slot in the Kin 6 Greats. But back to the point, Yotanwa plans to take Kantan, so even if she didn't face Shibashu, she would still have to deal with the likes of the Xiao Central Armies and the Royal Army also. There's plenty of ways this type of battle could go for Yotanwa, and we just don't know until we see some actual movement on the front lines. Now here is where I want the attack plan to alter at least somewhat. So supposedly Ousen will get the armies from Han alongside SHin, Muten and the Tou army commanders, and they will also head up north, creating a force just over 200,000 strong to take on Riboku. But what if that army split in half? Now let me explain. Instead of the 2 battlefields, Yotanwa and Ousen, we turn it into 3 battlefields. Now the north will get Ousen with his commanders and the Han armies, presumably Yoko as well, and then maybe 1 or 2 of the Tou commanders. Knowing Ousen, he would request either Kanao for his ruthless fighting ability or Ryukoku for his timeless perfect strategy of mind. Now adding up all those forces, this army would be roughly 150,000 strong, and that would face off against the forces of Riboku, Kaine and Fute, who are always by his side. Then you get Enkan and also Kotso Minhaku, while the likes of SHin, Muten and whoever is left takes Riboku City Buon, which is at the edge of the western end of the wall, and then proceeds to the capital Kantan, where in the battle they would face the likes of Bananji, Bafuji and Shunsuiju, and we know that they are based there from past events. While as far as we know Riboku is up north, this would be an absolutely lethal mix of battles, and all of them would be field battles. No chance any of them, other than the forces of Kantan, would just create a standard siege battle. This way we have 3 brilliant battles like we did in the Western Zhao invasion, and we will get to see more of the armies also in this type of scenario, because I know we all want to see the Ousen army's commanders in full-blown action and see what they're capable of. Not to mention, we want to see Muten pull some beautifully exquisite strategies that we won't understand until he's even done them. And of course, I want to see the mountain tribes go full berserker on some people, especially Yotanwa, just laying waste to anyone who comes in her path. It's going to be brutal. And another way of looking at it, this way we'll be able to finally see the Fute army in action, and of course we could see what Shunsuiju is capable of, although we now know he isn't able to beat Muten, even with a guy like Bananji on his team, not to mention the fact that it will leave Riboku limited options. Just think about it, Riboku's greatest weapon is that he has supposedly a limitless amount of talented generals. If we cut off his supply chain to these generals, he'll become so much weaker. And that's why I think they should attack Buon. And of course there's the other advantages, like Kantan being approached from 2 sides, one side by SHin, Muten and whoever, and the other side being approached by Yotanwa and Wuhan, while Ousen would take on Riboku up north. And more importantly, this type of scenario, 3 battlefields, would grant the story and the strategy balance. And by balance, I mean just that. Imagine if not only Ousen's army commanders faced Riboku in the north, but then you got all the reinforcements, SHin, Muten, etc. That's too many key characters to have in the same place to make a good storytelling. Just look at the Battle of Hango. The left battlefield got more or less completely ignored because there's just too much going on in the same place. So while we may not necessarily see 3 battles at the 3 most important locations, I hope we get some type of well spread out battles, so what happens in one battle won't necessarily affect the others. And so Kingdom fans, I do hope you've enjoyed this video, and if so, remember to smash that like button down below and hit that subscribe button with that notification bell so you can stay up to date with the channel and all things Kingdom. See you in the next one.